Good morning, everybody. Today's Tuesday, August 12th. I'm John Weigell here with Mark Dent, and this is the Hustle Daily Show. The sports streaming wars are reaching their peak. Paramount, after a merger with Skydance, has acquired the rights to stream all the UFC events of the year for $7.7 billion for 7 years. Every streaming company is paying top dollar now for sports, but what does the landscape look like after this huge purchase? We'll get to that and the biggest business and tech headlines after this. HubSpot helped Tumblr solve a big problem. They needed to move fast to produce trending content, but their marketing team was stuck waiting on engineers to code every single email campaign. Now they use HubSpot's customer platform to email real-time, trending content to millions of users in just seconds. The impact? 3 times more engagement and double the content creation. Want to move fast like Tumblr? Visit HubSpot.com. Okay, so starting us off today, AOL, a pioneer that introduced millions of Americans to the internet, is ending its dial-up service next month. This follows a trend for the once culturally inescapable company, as it also shut down AIM, which is AOL Instant Messenger, if you remember, in 2017. So, Mark, AOL is kind of out the door here. Not surprised and thought this happened sooner, but here we are, canceling dial-up next month.
Yeah, everybody did, but it's been sort of maybe a well-known secret of sorts that AOL still exists and still did a relatively robust business, if not just in dial-up. They'd have people who still have AOL accounts who their email, and then they also would essentially pay some fee just because they'd been paying it forever. But according to data from the U.S. Census, less than 200,000 people have landline in the U.S. So whatever percent that AOL had of that is what's being killed off here. So it's not a huge number.
Yeah, it's not a big number. And, I remember my days using dial-up. And as I said, I thought it would have gone away long ago. But it is a sad death. AOL was so huge in the 90s and inescapable in the early 2000s in that kind of era. But yeah, it's sad to see it go as a relic of its time. But it had a good run there.
Yeah. And as a sort of sign of this time, as people also may not know, AOL is owned by a private equity firm. So, you know what I mean? Life is cyclical, I guess. I don't know.
Oh, wow. The punchlines really keep coming. Next up here, cocktail mix maker Zing Zang is launching a Bloody Mary flavored ketchup, which may sound familiar to its fans as it was the company's April Fool's joke. Apparently, the post got fans so riled up that the spicy condiment quickly shifted from prank idea to actual expansion strategy. This also happened, if you remember, with the Rainforest Cafe being in the Empire State Building. Next, a big bummer for Microsoft Lens fans. After a decade, the handy app that turns paper documents into digital files will shut down on December 15th after a decade. Microsoft will instead direct users to its Copilot AI chat app, which currently lacks some of Lens's functionality, but may have it soon. We'll see. Next up, in some car news, Ford is going to invest $5 billion in its EV manufacturing capabilities in Kentucky and Michigan, adding or securing an estimated 4,000 jobs. Ford also announced plans for a new EV pickup truck priced at $30,000 and due in 2027. That $30,000 is a pretty good price point for an EV nowadays. And finally, joining the ideas of quiet quitting, quiet firing, quiet vacationing, and many other quiet terms, we've now got quiet cracking, which is a persistent funk in which employee satisfaction slowly erodes into disengagement and subpar work. And it's characterized by general just unhappiness and a feeling of trudging through each workday. A recent poll by employee training software company Talent LMS found that 54% of American workers report feeling consistent with quiet cracking. Mark, I like that we're inventing all these new terms, but this one just sounds like just being at work.
Yeah, I was going to say, this one just sounds like the human condition.
Yeah.
And I thought that we already had a cure for this, which was 5-hour energy.
Right.
So,
or pizza parties, Mark. Pizza parties.
True. Yeah, exactly. That's the morale boost. The physical boost is for the 5-hour energy.
Right.
There's just going to be these terms that keep coming and coming and coming, I think, for the rest of our lives.
Yeah. A lot of these, they do characterize these traits that we've been accused of seeing in younger generations at work, which is the quiet quitting or quiet vacationing. But yeah, quiet cracking just sounds like just a downturn in morale, just generally, which I mean, you can see that the job market's been pretty horrific lately and the economy hasn't also been doing too hot. It kind of makes sense that at this day and age that this is also something plaguing the mind of workers across the states.
Yeah, and add to what you just said, that leaders, certainly at big companies in particular, they're not being very hospitable to their employees anymore. To put it mildly, in the case of some of them, but it's like headline day after day of just get back into the office and you'll have no perks and there's no guarantee you'll be promoted. You just work here is kind of the status quo now at a lot of companies. So
yeah, totally. And for more headlines and updates like that, you can subscribe to the show and we'll have more for you tomorrow. But in the meantime, we got something else to talk about because Paramount just made a deal to acquire the UFC rights for the entire year of 2026 going forward through 7 years from then on. So Mark, let's talk about it. Paramount acquiring UFC rights, it's a big deal. Obviously, the sports rights have been kind of flying left and right recently.
Yeah, they really have. The NBA went up for a new deal about a year ago. Just in the last week, WWE, which is also owned by TKO Group, which owns UFC. And so the deal for this is about $1 billion a year to Paramount Plus for the next 7 years. And again, to mention WWE just from last week, that went to ESPN at about $500 million a year.
Yeah.
So a good way to cash in for TKO Group. And I think most significantly with this deal regarding UFC, there will be no pay-per-view.
Right.
Basically, since the UFC's inception, or at least since it became like a pretty viable product in the 90s, their biggest fights have been pay-per-view.
Yeah, I mean, it really kind of signals the death of pay-per-view here because as you mentioned, like the WWE as well shifted when they went over to Peacock, and before that they had the WWE Network for all of their monthly pay-per-view events. Pay-per-view has not existed for them for about 10 years, but now it's really dead for the UFC, which the UFC and pay-per-view were pretty hand in hand for a while there. I mean, you couldn't watch the UFC events any other way for a while. So now that they're moving to streaming, I'm trying to think of any stalwarts of pay-per-view that are still around, maybe other than boxing. I can't really think of any.
Well, I think it pretty much is boxing. And, the TKO Group president, Mark Shapiro, told CNBC that, quote, the pay-per-view model is a thing of the past, end quote. And I think that kind of sums it up.
Yeah.
And I think that's in part because people, they kind of pay per streamer as is. So nobody wants to pay something extra. Mm-hmm. If you do look at like Apple Plus streamer, though, they do have MLS Soccer. It's available for an extra fee on top of what you already pay for Apple. And I don't think that model has been very popular.
Yeah.
But if you go back to pay-per-view exactly, boxing has been on it famously for many decades. And in those many decades, boxing's popularity has plummeted to below the ground. It went from being truly one of the most popular, iconic sports in America to something that can't even be considered an afterthought.
Yeah.
And I think that's in part because, they were able to cash in by having these pay-per-view fights. They might have made more revenue for a while, but it led to a decline in popularity. And I think UFC, by opting to no longer do pay-per-view, could see even more growth. And this is a sport that has already grown greatly for the last few decades.
Yeah, going back to boxing, like even a lot of the marquee boxing matches have moved to like Netflix. Mm-hmm. For example, you have your Jake Paul fights on Netflix.
He's the only one in it now that anyone knows.
He's the only one doing it. But yeah, no, it makes sense that Paramount would want to sop up this deal. They just sold control of the company as well to Skydance Media. And this is kind of the first big splash that this new conglomerate has made to acquire UFC rights. But there's not really much left in the well in terms of sports rights, which is why they probably jumped at this immediately.
Right. There's Major League Baseball, which just kind of had a falling out with ESPN over the last few months. MLB is quite popular in person, but it's not a huge ratings getter. People aren't just going to tune in to watch, the Angels versus the A's on like a Sunday night.
Yeah.
It's just not that popular in the same way that NFL is, or even NBA, which is also, all things considered, not all that popular during the regular season. But if you look at like some of the numbers to, again, provide a little perspective for what this is, about $1 billion a year for UFC. F1 is looking at a deal with Apple that's been reported on, but it hasn't been finalized yet. That's going to be worth around 120 to 150 million a year. And then NBA, like I was saying earlier, it gets about $7 billion per year in the new deal that they signed last year. So I think that puts UFC both in like good shape in the sense that I think it's quite a bit more popular than Formula One. I wouldn't be surprised if this ends up being a great deal for Paramount.
Yeah.
When you look at how much less it's costing them than the NBA, and while there certainly are way more NBA games than there are UFC matches, UFC to me is something that's just going to keep on gaining in the next few years.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is quite a good investment because like Paramount historically has had pretty low subscriber numbers, especially compared to like the big ones like Netflix and even HBO Max now. So, I mean, this is probably a pretty good pickup for them in terms of getting people to actually subscribe to the Paramount service, which I think is pretty lacking or has been lacking over the past few years.
Right. And it'll get, I think, a younger audience for Paramount as well, because UFC is popular with a younger audience, whereas CBS, which is, of course, within Paramount, CBS has always been known more as kind of the old people's network. You know, it's the most watched network in America, which essentially means it's the most watched thing by people over age 65.
That's right.
And now UFC is popular among people under 35. Yeah. So this will, I think, maybe really help them out.
Yeah, it'll definitely shake things up. Are you a Paramount Plus subscriber? Have you ever subscribed to it, even for like a day, for just to try it out?
I think I subscribed to it fairly recently in order to watch Yellow Jackets, the most recent season of Yellow Jackets.
Oh, I hear that's the good one on there.
Yeah. And it was originally on Starz, and then Starz, I guess, got acquired by Paramount. So therefore, I did have Paramount Plus for a very short amount of time.
I mean, it might be worth it if you're a UFC fan, considering these pay-per-views are like, I mean, I remember spending, I mean, maybe like more of a wrestling guy, but like $40 to $60 on a pay-per-view.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it would be an outrageous amount that they would charge for pay-per-view. So if you're going to pay something like $12 a month, you know, for Paramount, whatever it's going to be, they may end up making it a little bit more expensive now that they have UFC. But nevertheless, it seems like it's better than just paying, you know, $50 for one fight.
Yeah, exactly. All right, that'll do it for us today. Thanks for tuning into the Hustle Daily Show. We're a proud part of HubSpot Media. Our editor is Robert Hartwig, and our executive producer is Darren Clark. We got a lot more tech and business coverage in our newsletter. If you're not subscribed, go get signed up at thehustle.co/email and follow us on Instagram at The Hustle Daily. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Look, I'm going to be straight with you. Everybody's talking about AI, but most people are just playing around with ChatGPT instead of actually making money from it. That's why we dropped the ultimate crash course to create your own AI side hustle in 7 days. We're talking real frameworks and strategies from the pros like the founder of The Hustle, Sam Parr. It includes mini guides, templates, the whole 9 yards, stuff that takes years to figure out, condensed into 1 week. Stop what you're doing right now and grab it in the show notes. Your future self will thank you.